Hi everybody, I'm Brandon and welcome to Tech Step Academy. Today we are going to be setting up our virtual environment as a way to prepare for working on our Python projects. So anytime that we do a Python project, no matter what it is, we want to make sure that you and I are using pretty much the same Python version, right? Otherwise, there's going to be problems that will arise that don't need to arise, and it's going to frustrate you. So what is a virtual environment right off the bat? We're not going to get too deeply into the concept, but basically it's just a way for your operating system to handle multiple Python installations without kind of cross-pollination, right? So let's say that on Monday I have a project that I'm working on that uses Python 2.7. So I start working on that project, install Python 2.7 on my, let's say, my Windows machine. I'm using something called pip, which we're going to grab as well, for downloading libraries that I'm going to use, right? Some site packages. So now I've got Python 2.7, I've downloaded some libraries I'm using, but now it's Tuesday, and let's say Tuesday someone says, hey Brandon, I'd like you to take a look at this project I have. It's in 3.5, Python 3.5, right? Well, I could go and I could install 3.5 on my machine, but then it would, completely blow away what I had as my default machine Python already, and now I would have 3.5 in the best of scenarios, right? And I could go ahead and start installing things into 3.5, and let's say that maybe that Wednesday's project was 3.5 as well. And but it uses different libraries, right? So I'm downloading Wednesday's libraries, but now Tuesday's libraries are mixed up with Wednesday's libraries, and things are starting to get a little bit confusing. And now I need Python 3.6 for this other project. So you can see how this could get fairly unruly pretty quick. So the way that we typically handle this is we use something called a virtual environment, which is just a way for you to sort of install a couple different Python distributions on your machine and install whatever you want within those versions in terms of libraries, right? Things that you would import while you were coding, and then just activate the one you want. Go ahead and code in that environment, and when you're done, you would deactivate it, and you would activate another one, right? Let's say Tuesday, I want to activate 3.5, so I do, and I start working on it, and when maybe Thursday comes around and I need 3.6, I just deactivate 3.5, and I activate 3.6, and now not only do I get, when I type Python, and I'll show you all of this, but when I type Python, it will reference 3.6, which is desirable, right? Not only that, I also get all the libraries that I downloaded onto 3.6 as well, and they're not mixed up with all of the libraries from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? So that's kind of what we're going to do, and how we're going to do it is, I know you know hopefully how to download Python, but I'm going to go ahead and walk you through it anyway. So go to the Python downloads page, and if you're on a Windows machine or a Mac or Linux, you can kind of use these links down here. I trust you know enough about computers to decide which operating system you have and which Python you need to download. We're going to use 3.6 today. It really doesn't matter for today's exercise, but since we're going to be, a lot of our tutorials are going to use 3.6, I know that probably dates these tutorials, but that's the current prevailing 3.x distribution right now. So go ahead, and I would recommend downloading 3.6. So here we are. Hey, it's downloaded already. And we're going to go ahead and try to install it, right? So what you should see when you open up your installer, it's going to look a little bit different if you're on Mac, but the concept is still the same. You've got, your install now, you're customized. Now, before you go ahead and normally, 9 times out of 10, you ignore me and you go on and install it 'cause you're like, yeah, I know. I just need Python. But that's not the case. We have two special things that we have to do. So if you went forward, you're going to have to uninstall it and then restart this video, okay? Or else you're going to have problems. The first thing is you need to add Python 3.6 to your path, okay? So you can click it down here, and I believe you have the same option on Mac. I know that it'll pop up at some point during your installation. The second thing is we're going to customize this installation because I want you to put it somewhere very memorable, and that the reason will become clear in just a moment. So here we have some optional features. Pip, this is a big one, definitely want that. So whoops. So just leave that be, go ahead and grab everything. And another big one, add Python to environment variables. That's pretty important too. Make sure that is checked. Now here's the number two big thing, right? So it added it in a place, if I can get that back, it added a pretty non-convenient, non-memorable place. Something about, users Brandon, which is my home directory, app data, local, okay, now we're getting weird, programs and blah, 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 right? Like I can't remember that, I can't access that readily. So what I'm going to do is just eliminate everything after my home directory, and you can put it wherever you want. Put it somewhere that you can remember, whatever works for you on your machine. I recommend somewhere in your home directory for now. Once you get used to this, you can start to organize things the way you like it. So I'm going to go ahead and call it, I don't know, 3.6 or something like that. So I'm going to hit install. And go ahead and if you need to install, go ahead and pause the video, get that done. Once you're done, unpause and we'll get back to work. Okay, so the setup was successful. Apparently we're supposed to thank Mark Hammond, so thank you, Mark. And it's time to move on. Go ahead and if you're in Windows, open up your command prompt. That would be typing your, hitting your Windows key. CMD will get you there. If you're on a Mac, you're going to go to your terminal, and if you're on a Linux box, you're going to go to your terminal. Okay. Okay, so how can we demonstrate this, right? I've just installed it on Windows, so I expect to see 3.6.3 as my Windows Python because previously I didn't have one. So the only one that I should have on my path, which means that when I type Python, the only one it should find should be 3.6.3. And when I type Python -- version, that appears to be the case. What I want you to do is I want you to follow along with me, and we're going to create your first virtual environment using your 3.6.3 executable or binary if you're on a Mac. And what that looks like is we're going to use pip, which hopefully you're familiar with it, but pip is like Python's package installer, right? So do I have pip? Yay, I do, right? So I'm going to do a pip install virtualenv. And you can see it installed pretty quickly. That's nice. Do I have it? Let's do a pip list. I do. You can see I have a very thin system here. I've just got pip, setup tools, and virtualenv. So not much going on here. So now it's time to create our virtual environment using virtualenv. And how do we do that? Well, the syntax is basically virtualenv, which is the command, and then the name of the virtual environment you want to create. But we're going to use a special option today because if you don't specify anything, the virtualenv will create a virtual environment off of whatever your system is pointing to at any given time, which may be your default one on Mac, or if you're on Windows and you've only installed one, it's going to use that one, which may not always be desirable. So just to make sure that we're all on the same page, we're going to specify which Python executable we want to use. And we do that by just doing a -p. So you can see, one big thing. Let's probably find a place to put it, right? We can't just shove our virtual environments into any folder, right? Home directory is memorable, but it's probably full of a lot of stuff, right? It's your home directory, music, videos, and stuff like that. So you might want to make a directory. I've created one called VMs for my virtual environments. That's how I remember. You can name it whatever you like as long as you know where it is and remember where you put it. So once you've created that, you can use an mkdir make dir to create your directory, or just if you're on Windows, go and create one, whatever is most comfortable for you. Once we have it, now it's time to create that virtual environment. So virtualenv, here's the customization part. -p means, hey, I'm going to give you a Python executable or a binary if you're on Mac or Linux. And I want you to make it off that one, right? So don't just use any old one that's on my system right now. I want you to use this specific one. And the way you can do that is, the safest way is just to use the path to that, right? And then the question becomes, well, what is the path to that? And that would be a very, very good question, which is why I stressed installing our Python in a place that was memorable, right? So for me, I installed it in a place called Python 3.6, I believe, if you recall. There we see it. This is just, you can see the important bit here is my Python executable right here. And if you're on a Mac, again, you're not going to have an executable. You're going to have a binary. So wherever it is, you need to find it. On Mac, it should just be called Python 3.6, I believe. And just find that and remember it, right? Remember where it is. For me, I've got my path down here. If I wanted to, I could just copy it just to make sure that I'm not going to fat finger it incorrectly. So now we need to get back into that directory where the directory we created to hold our virtual environments, right? So now I'm there, and now it's time to go ahead and do it for real. So -P, and now to point it to the right place, which is in users Brandon Python 3.6 for me, and then I got to point it to the executable, I said, which, well, I got a little cheater up here, python.exe. So, and then the last little bit is going to be, and I'm going to run off my screen here, which is unfortunate. But give me a little more space. So we need to name this virtual environment, right? Again, I really don't care what you name it as long as it's descriptive and it makes sense to you. A good one might be, I don't know, I'm giving you a virtualenv demo, so I'm going to call it demoenv 3.6, which is just a hint of, it's a demo environment and it's using Python 3.6, right? So I'm going to hit enter and hopefully all goes as planned. So you can see it found the right executable that I wanted it to in users Brandon Python 3.6, which I created, and python.exe, good. It's installing the libraries, just the basic ones you get with any Python environment, and now supposedly it worked. So here we have demoenv 3.6. It looks like it made it, and that's good news. So let's crack it open real quick and see what's inside. Okay, so some stuff. The only stuff you should care about is really the scripts. If you're on a Mac, it's not going to look this way. It's going to look similar. And on a Mac, you're going to have lib. You're going to have, instead of scripts, you'll have bin, which are your binaries, okay? On Windows, you're running executables, and on Mac, you're running binaries, and it's just a semantic thing, right? So just know that if you're on Windows, you need to be looking in scripts, and if you're on a Mac following along at home, go into the bin directory. So this is going to look much the same on both systems. It's just, again, Windows, you will have executables, and Mac, you will have just the scripts. The important one, the only one we really care about here, although it's nice to note that, hey, here's where all our pip executables are, here's where the Python executables are. The activate is the one we care about. Activate is, hey, I want to initiate this environment, right, this virtual environment, so I can start using this Python version and downloading stuff, downloading packages into it and such. So let me demonstrate what that means. So real quick, the two rules are: when I want to start using an environment, I activate it. When I want to stop using an environment, I deactivate it. Okay, activate, deactivate. Those are the two commands. You need to come here to do it because this is where the script is. So if you're a scripter and you already know your way around your OS, you can absolutely create an alias for this so it's quicker. But for the rest of us, just navigate to this directory and activate it. So here, something changed, right? Over on the side, I see demoenv 3.6 in parentheses. That's telling me, hey buddy, you're in a virtual environment right now, and we're using demoenv 3.6. Now, I need to prove this to myself by saying, okay, I am indeed in 3.6, but this might not be a good way of of telling, because remember, my system Python happens to be 3.6.3. So I think a better way would be to look at the packages. Actually, I should mention one other gotcha. If you're in the directory with the Python executable, then running Python -- version is going to give you the version of that executable, not necessarily the one in your virtual environment. So if you want a true reading, get out of the directory, right, and try then. Mine should still be the same, but if you have different versions on your computer, you should see now the 3.6.3. But as I mentioned, because I only have 3.6.3 on here, it'd be better to give you an example where what if I had another version, right? So in order to do that, I'm going to deactivate, and I'm going to activate another one that I've created. You don't need to do this, so don't follow along, just kind of watch and pay attention. So I'm going to go and do a Python 2.7 environment that I created, virtual environment, and I'm going to activate that. Now you see again on the side P27M, which means I'm in another environment. I'm using Python 2.7 now. So again, avoiding the gotcha of accidentally calling that executable in that directory. Let's see what happens when I get out of there and I make a call to Python. Okay, Python 2.7.14. Much better. So what this is doing, this is sort of messing with my system's paths, okay, at a deeper level. It's just saying, well, now we're going to point the paths to this virtual environment, 2.7. So when you type Python, that's the one you're using. If that doesn't make any sense to you, just ignore it. It's we'll get into that stuff later. So let's go over the last bit of useful functionality that a virtual environment has, and that is, again, isolation of your packages, your libraries. So I'm in 2.7 right now. Why don't I install something? I'm going to install Beautiful Soup 4, which is just an HTML parser. It's not important, but I'm going to do a pip list. Do I have it? I do indeed. Beautiful Soup, pip, so in my 2.7 environment, I've installed Beautiful Soup, because let's say it's Monday, I need to use Python 2.7, and the project that I have requires Beautiful Soup. So I installed it. But now it's Tuesday, right? I don't want Beautiful Soup anymore. That was Monday's stuff. I'm going to deactivate and back out a little bit. Which version am I on? Well, I'm not in a virtual environment anymore, as you can tell by the lack of parentheses over here. So it should be my system 3.6.3 installation, right? Let's double check that. And indeed, Python 3.6.3. But let's give another example here. What do I have installed via pip in my Python, my system Python? I have virtualenv. That's it. Remember the thing that we used to create the virtual environment. Notice that Beautiful Soup is not there. Beautiful Soup is only there if I need to work on 2.7. That is when, when I activate it, boom, I get it for free. Beautiful Soup. It's there, all ready for me to go. So you get sort of your mise en place, right? You activate your virtual environment, and suddenly all the stuff that you put in there on Monday is back for next Monday. Pretty convenient. But let's not forget our friendly 3.6 virtual environment, which is what you are going to be using. You're not going to be using your system Python. So again, I back out. I'm going to go into my demo env and my scripts folder, so I can activate the one that I want to use. And there we have 3.6. I'm going to back out so I don't accidentally call that executable again. So what should I see when I hit this Python version? I should see Python 3.6.3, right? Good. But not only should I see that, my pip list should not include virtualenv, because remember, virtualenv was installed on my system Python 3.6.3, not in this virtual environment, which should be completely isolated so we're safe from all the junk on the outside, right? Let's say 3.6 was what I say, my Thursday project. I have all these projects. So if 3.6 is my Thursday project, then When I come in next Thursday, I only want to see the things that I installed into that environment. So let's double check. I should not see virtualenv. And I don't. Perfect. So that really concludes the whole demonstration, right? To recap, virtual environments are just a way of getting multiple distributions of Python, multiple versions on the same operating system. You can do as many as you want. You can have 15 Python 3.6 virtual environments. If you have 15 different projects, that's completely fine. It's easy when you're starting out to just kind of shove everything into the same distribution, right? And just have all of this pip installed stuff in there. You're going to find as you move forward that you will need that organization of isolating things into projects, because if you don't, you're going to run into version problems and other things that are just going to frustrate you and waste your time, okay? Not only that, but this is going to allow you to follow along with me and make sure that, again, we eliminate a lot of those problems that come with mismatching versions. So, I'm Brandon Blair. This is TechStep Academy. I really appreciate you watching this. Watch as many times as you need to get this virtualenv thing down. And this is going to be useful for you, again, as we move forward into every tutorial here on out. So thank you again.